We've done the RA, we've done the C, we've done the E. So now it's time to move on to the S, the summary. You're going to need to summarize your response. Now, when you summarize, please make sure that you are writing a new original sentence. Don't simply copy and paste your sentence from the first part of the paragraph and drop it into the end of the paragraph. That's really transparent. It's not very enjoyable to read, and hopefully by this point, your audience has achieved a new level of understanding, and you can be a little more intricate with what you write. Well, one of the most common responses I get out of eighth graders is they don't know how to write the response, so they just come up with this kind of general, generic blanket statement. Well, that's why the sage is important. That what? What is why the sage is important? And students will often say, "Well, no, my whole paragraph." Well, that's not what a pronoun like that says. That as a pronoun mostly points to the most recent noun before it as its antecedent. That's what it stands for. So, if your last noun before that sentence is sage, then you're saying, well, that's why sage is important. And the reader looks back and goes, oh, sage is why sage is important. That doesn't make any sense. So you need to come up with a better statement, and it's fairly easy to do. You just have to know how to do it. So avoid using especially that at the beginning of your summary statement. Another one that drives me nuts is in conclusion, the most important thing in the medicine bag is the sage. In conclusion is below eighth grade level. I don't know how else to say it. It is something I know you've been taught to use transitions like first, next, then, last, finally, or in conclusion. I know you were taught that at some point along the line. I don't know if it was fifth grade or somewhere around there, but using those super basic, artificially inserted transition statements, that's great when you're first learning how. But you need to, it's in eighth grade, you need to do better. I say it like this. In conclusion is to writing what training wheels are to riding a bike. They're great for beginners, but you don't want to be seen using them in the eighth grade. So you're writing, hopefully you'll develop some transitional strategies to connect your ideas. They're connected, but the hard work of writing is trying to show somebody else how your ideas are connected. Honestly, a simple, direct, straightforward response that just adds a little bit. I pulled in the other two pieces. The piece of iron and the pebble are important, but the sage is the most important item in the bag. The summary reinforces the whole main point of the response, and it leaves a strong final impression on the reader. Both of those are good. If you can write a good summary, you leave the writer or the reader, I'm sorry, who is also often the grader, you leave them thinking good things about your response, and that could influence them, especially if they're on the line of what score to give you to bump you. A strong ending will, in many cases, bump you up to a higher score. I want you to see what this whole thing looks like. And so here it is. Sage is the most important item in Grandpa's medicine bag. While Grandpa is teaching Martin about the medicine bag, Grandpa tells him to put a piece of prairie sage in the bag. Since sage is the one thing that Martin needs to put into the bag himself, it will show that Martin is willing to accept his part in this family tradition. The piece of iron and the pebble are important, but the sage is the most important item in the bag. I hope you can see how that is a unified, it's a consistent response. It has the RA in the first sentence, it has the C in the second sentence, the E, the S. Incidentally, did you notice how when I was reading that I didn't read what was in the parentheses? That is not it's not an afterthought, or it's not something, sometimes you read what's in parentheses out loud and sometimes you don't. When you have a parenthetical citation like this, you don't read it out loud. So what happened in the reading of it was you didn't hear what paragraph it came from, because that's not really important information in the understanding of the story. It's only important information for the reader who's going back to verify. And that happens all the time. That's what research papers are about. That's what scientific papers are about. So it's an important element, but it doesn't need to be read out loud to aid in the understanding of the paper. So I hope that makes sense to you. The races is a strategy that we're going to use this year, and I hope you get good at it and that we can build good writing skills within that races structure.